Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for positions of Wisconsin Rapids Aldermanic District Number 2, Wisconsin Rapids Mayor, and Wisconsin Rapids City Clerk. I'm Karen Schill, moderating for the League this evening, and we'd also like to thank Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for providing the viewing coverage and co-sponsoring the forum with the League. The League thanks the candidates for their willingness to both run for public office and for your presence tonight. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan and does not support or propose any candidate or political party. We welcome questions from our viewing audience by phoning in 715-423-0441 and from our studio audience. We will begin tonight's forum with our two candidates running for Wisconsin Rapids Alderman District Number 2, Todd Ferkey and Lee Graf. Written questions from our viewing audience and our studio audience should be directed to the office and not to a particular candidate, and only questions pertaining to issues, not personalities, will be asked. Cards for questions are available from our ushers in the studio audience, and again, they can be phoned in. We do sort questions for clarity, directness, and to avoid duplication. And now it's time to begin with opening statements, and we will begin with Todd Ferkey.
Good evening. My name is Todd Ferkey, and I am the current alderman for the District 2 of the City of Wisconsin Rapids, and I would like to welcome the ladies and gentlemen that are here tonight, the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this, the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for their taping and showing this forum to the city and those people interested. I'd like to thank the City Times for their attendance also. And I would also like to thank the current city alderman, the mayor, the city clerk, and those also seeking office, Mr. Graf and others, for their willingness to serve the community and be a part of the solutions rather than looking past problems. I also would like to say that I am thankful and honored and humbled by the opportunities that District 2 has given me the last 4 years. I have tried to do my best and look forward to hearing your questions tonight and answering them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey's challenger, Lee Graf.
Hello, my name is Lee Graf. First off, I'd like to start out by thanking everybody here, everybody in attendance, and the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on. It's a tough thing to do, to sit up in front of a bunch of people and talk about issues that are going on in the community. Todd, thanks for everything you've done in your service. But I just want to let you know a little bit who I am. I was here 2 years ago. I've lived in the city of Wisconsin Rapids my whole life. I worked outside construction for about 9 years, where I got to travel the Midwest. Learned a lot of things that are out there. I was able to meet a lot of really great people, and it got me thinking about, what we could do in the city of Wisconsin Rapids. I moved back into Rapids, worked at the Whiting Mill, where unfortunately I experienced the closure. And that was tough. It was tough to see families affected by the closure. It was tough to see the economic impact of the area and the fact that everybody didn't have a job that they had for a lot of years. Got married, have 4 kids. Since then, I put in for a job at Domtar in Nakusa, and that's where I've been for the last 7 years. So once again, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to run for the district, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Our first question will go to Lee Graf. What is your position on the aquatics project?
The aquatics project is tough. The city's looking to borrow a lot of money. I think aquatics is very important. When I grew up at a young age, I believe we had 5 pools. It was Port Edwards, Rapids had 2, Nakusa had 1, and the YMCA, I believe, had another. So it's a tough situation. We have left our kids with nothing to do in the summer. I agree with putting aquatics into the city. I don't know if I agree with the level in which we're trying to go about it. It's tough to compete with the Wisconsin Dells when we're less than an hour away. But I do agree with the fact that we're going to put something positive in the city, and that our kids will have somewhere to go in the summer, cool off. I'd like to see a little bit more of a partnership with possibly the Mid-State Technical College, and have them help design maybe a solar system. Maybe we can heat the pool, maybe scale this project back a little bit, do it in a few different phases so our city doesn't extend itself too far. But I do think it's a very positive thing that we're looking to do, or that the city council is looking to do, and I hope to see it completed shortly.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey.
Thank you. The aquatics for Wisconsin Rapids is something that I actually made the motion to approve the Regional Aquatic Center over at the Witter Field facility or area. As Lee has stated too, we have been without aquatics in this area, in the Rapids, city of Rapids, for a couple of years. Just recently opened up our splash pad. Splash pad is designed for generally the younger population, leads children and others. While that is a benefit to the city, it helps with young parents and children. The aquatics at Witter, the Regional Aquatic Center, will be geared towards everyone. Old, young, those that are disabled. It will be a walk-in type slope, so those that have bad knees or maybe overweight like myself can go in and get out without any issues. The cost, it's a lot of money. Yes, it is. We have committed half. We are currently soliciting donations from citizens and from outside foundations. Just recently, negotiations have progressed, and I'll say that. It is a lot of money. As far as the comparison to the Dells, it will be nice. It's going to have twisty slides, zero entry, lazy river. It'll also feature winter activities, ice skating and stuff like that. Not in the pool, but actually in the parking lot. Also, that whole area will be year-round activities. There'll be buildings to rent out for birthday parties, anniversary parties, and other corporate type functions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Todd Ferkey first. What are 3 positive things happening now in Wisconsin Rapids?
Things happening now in Wisconsin Rapids certainly is the aquatics. Our riverfront development has got traction. Plans are underway for that. Shovels in the ground very quickly. I like the actual sale of the Riverview Hospital to Aspirus. I see lots of energy put forth there with expansion of employment. I see the new General Motors Chevy Wheeler Chevrolet on West Grand Avenue. The YMCA Boys and Girls Club taking over the former Rapids Mall is a blessing, such a blessing. That was going to be a dark store with the vacation of J.C. Penney's, and it would be such a sore spot for the city. When the YMCA came along and Boys and Girls Club, this is going to repurpose that property, help redevelop the downtown again, and also give an opportunity for children and adults a place to exercise and enjoy city life in Wisconsin Rapids.
Thank you. Lee Graf.
3 things that are positive in the community. There's a lot. I think we have a lot going for us. We're centrally located in the state. We have a natural resource that runs right through the middle of our city. We're about 2.5 to 3 hours to any border in which we live. We have a lot of good things just geographically in our area. The other thing is I agree with Todd. I think it was nice to see that we're actually making some progress on the west side of town with Wheelers. I see a lot of people driving around with Wheelers plates, stickers on the back of their cars. I think that's a positive thing. It was a very good improvement to an area that had been kind of left alone for quite some time. The downtown development project with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, I think that's very positive. For the last 2 years, since I did not win this race last time, I've been working on a project to repurpose the Meade Field Diamonds and to make them, flip them around and make them more usable for different various kids organizations, American Legion, RISA, Wisconsin Rapids Youth Baseball Association. And I think that the fact that the YMCA is willing to build in a close proximity is actually only going to help to accent that property and that project. The other thing is the splash pad. With this project or the master plan at Meade, I think that splash pad only adds to that, and it's a positive thing. It's on the west side of town. We're currently the district in which I would represent, so I think it's very positive. And we can't forget about the growth in jobs. Right now, our mills, local mills, have been doing a good job of retaining a lot of employees for a lot of years. Well, unfortunately, everybody's becoming retirement age in the mills, and they're getting ready to retire, and those mills offer a very good opportunity for young families to get involved and to raise a family in the community. I'm really, really excited about the fact that it's hard for the mills to find qualified people. That's great. It's a challenging job opportunity for young people in the community, and I'm very excited for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Third question, we'll start with Lee Graf. Opioids, heroin, and meth are affecting communities, especially more rural. What role do you think the city can play to positively impact the situation?
So 2 years ago, it was the same question. Unfortunately, it's tough to make headway. Being centrally located in the state for exact same reasons I stated earlier is the exact same reasons we kind of are becoming a hub for drugs in the community. And it's a tough thing to do. I know we put on an additional police officer to help us out with that drug investigator, and that was great. But, truth of the matter is we're really running out of room. I don't know, like my position 2 years ago is I play more of a supportive role in this. My expertise is not in drug, opioid addictions and stuff like that. So I play more of a supportive role. We pay people in this city very good money to do that job, and my position would be supportive that let's get an action plan moving forward, and I am here to help you with resources and to do whatever I can to help out with whatever the master plan is. So unfortunately, that's all I can give you for now, but thank you very much.
Todd Ferkey.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Opioids, heroin, and meth are affecting communities, especially more rural. What role do you think the city can play to positively impact the situation?
Okay. So the city, when I started 4 years ago, we had one narcotics investigator. Now we have 3, thanks to some restructuring in the police department, removing, or not removing, but actually combining some jobs in the office area of the police department and using that monies to support a second narcotics investigator. The Legacy Foundation has been very generous, helping the city with a third limited term narcotics investigator. So those are good things to help combat the trafficking. Judge Wolf from the county is part of our drug court and also helps out there, helping with people that have convictions with narcotics, helping them to get back into the workforce, helping them to stay out of the jails and out of the prisons. The hiring of our new police chief, Erman Blevins, coming from Chicago, Illinois, larger city, also has helped a great deal because he's a little more worldly, I think. He also taking an active role in the evening patrols, one night a week. So he stays involved and keeps the city informed, the city staff informed, the city alderman informed. We get correspondence from him monthly as far as his activity and what he is doing to help combat the situation.
Thank you. It would be nice to never have to ask that question, right?
Yes, it sure would.
Okay, fourth question. We'll start with Todd Ferkey. What are your thoughts on the new form-based zoning code that the city is going to adopt?
So I was involved the last 18 months as far as the zoning rewrite, and it's a process, right? So I think it'll help streamline the clarity of what our zoning is when people, businesses looking to expand, maybe individuals looking to build in the city, they'll want to know where they can build. And if you want to open up a small business, it'll be available right on the city's website. What is zoned what? Where there are now, even now, you can find out where there's utility service, what size water mains, what size sewers. So right now, it's been a process, but it's really going to be beneficial to the city, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Thank you. The question is, what are your thoughts on the new form-based zoning code that the city is going to adopt? Lee Graf.
I think it's very important to know where the zones are. Like Todd had mentioned, size pipe, water usage, electricity, commercial property, residential. But just to be clear is I don't have a lot of information on this, so I'm going to have to not answer the question because I don't really have a lot of information on it.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Lee Graf. In what ways can Wisconsin Rapids work with neighboring communities to make services more efficient?
Just to be clear, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. In what ways can Wisconsin Rapids work with neighboring communities to make services more efficient?
That's a tough subject. The one thing that comes to mind is Port Edwards and the closure of the Port Edwards mill. That mill has been sitting there half tore down for quite a few years now. There is some state money that would give the owner of that mill, which is DMI, the opportunity to do some work there. Unfortunately, we have not been able to help out with that situation. I think that is slightly different with other surrounding communities. Sand Valley went in just south of Rapids. I think that's very good. I think it's a matter of getting people together and having that conversation. I don't know of the needs that, let's say, Port Edwards would use or need to help them move forward with the demolition of the Port Edwards mill, possibly putting in a trucking outfit there with the current spaces that they have there. And with Sand Valley, you know what it is that they need. I know hotels are a big issue. Transportation down to Sand Valley is a big issue from the airport. I think it's just really understanding what the different areas need and what it is we can do to help.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey.
Thank you. So for shared services, I look to the Wisconsin Rapids Fire Department taking over ambulance service to Saratoga and also to Buren, helping out there. That will be beneficial to both municipalities. It also helps subsidize the amount of labor costs that we have invested in our fire department. I see also the advantageous use of our water and sewer right now to the Buren Industrial Park, although that's not being very well utilized as of yet. Certainly that will be prayerfully in the future. I also see the city working with different municipalities, Grand Rapids and Port Edwards and Nakusa, in making our airport much more up-to-date, better taxiways. We just got a new $4 million federal grant that is going to help the service at the airport. That will, in fact, help the Sand Valley Golf Course bringing new clients into there, and also with the Renaissance Learning, bringing new clients into their facility. Also, at some point, hopefully we'll get an airline back into Wisconsin Rapids. It doesn't seem like it's been that long since Midstate has left, but I'm sure it's been 20 years. So those are certain ways that the city is already working together with other municipalities. So,
Thank you. Next question to Todd Ferkey. What are some of the barriers that you see to economic growth in the city, and what can we do?
So some of the physical barriers, so we don't have an interstate running through our city like the Stevens Point, and we don't have a university the size of the UW campus. Those are some big barriers. We've certainly fallen behind the cities like Marshfield with manufacturing. We've been somewhat of a one-horse town as far as employers for 100 years. The paper industry, there's not too many people that don't know that the paper industry is struggling. And we need to diversify this city, this area. Cranberries is one thing that'll help. Software development at Renaissance will help. Or Aspirus expansion, and maybe getting involved with other services, more specific, maybe into specialized medical services will help. But certainly we need manufacturing positions and manufacturers to relocate to this area. So as far as those are some of the barriers that we certainly are aware of. But we do have a nice city. We have a river that we can certainly utilize for recreation and for a draw to the tourism industry. So those are some of the things that we have in Wisconsin Rapids. We certainly need to improve our roads. That is something that, with a better tax base, more manufacturing, more people, that will happen. But right now it's a struggle. We got bottom lines just like any municipality. So,
Thank you. The question is, what are some of the barriers to economic growth in the city, and what can we do?
Unfortunately, my answer is slightly different. I believe we have a lot of people operate very well on their own. Our barriers tend to be ourselves, not just the city government, the different foundations that are in our community, maybe the different businesses that are in our community. But the truth of the matter is that we tend to get in our own way. Rapids has a lot to offer. I am who I am because of the people that I grew up around in this community. I think we have a very good new group of people that are coming into the community with some open ideas about what we can do. I think it's going to be extremely exciting to have the opportunity to work with them, and it's really just opening up and listening to what some of these other ideas are, and maybe take more of a can-do attitude. That's personally the way I feel about it. Like Todd had mentioned, we don't have an interstate. I don't believe that we need an interstate to thrive. I believe we can use what we have here and the people that we have coming back to our community to really move this city forward. And it's just a matter of getting out of our own ways in order to do that.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Lee Graf. What ideas do you have for dealing with blighted properties, and what could be the city's role in dealing with blighted properties?
Well, I don't take the position that the city should be a rental service or landlords, or we should be buying properties and then determining, we're taking taxes away from the bottom dollar and we're putting them, tearing down buildings and making parking lots. It's a tough position. I don't necessarily agree that we are landlords. I think we should encourage the new people, the new employees to these other jobs that are here, such as the mills, to really encourage them and to help them maybe get rid of some of our properties that we have, sell them off, let other people develop them, people that live in the community. It's really tough. It's a tough position, and it's a tough position for anybody that pays taxes to have the city walk or go around, kind of what we did with the Eagles Club. I think we paid about $75,000 for that. And what are we going to do with it? We're going to rent it out. It's got flooding issues and other issues with that building. We're going to make a parking lot. It's taxpayers' money going to buildings, and it's definitely a tough pill to swallow as a taxpayer to watch this happen. So I guess that's my position.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey.
Thank you. Certainly, it is not the city's position to be a landlord, although we are a landlord here. But with reference to the Eagles Club, with reference to the Labor Temple, with reference to East Town Plaza, those were vacant properties that would be vacant today and would be vacant next year and 5 years from now. They would be vacant, and they would have windows knocked out of them. They would not be developed. In order to develop that property, especially the Triangle property, those properties had to be consolidated. And we have a developer that the city is dealing with right now as far as developing the Triangle property with residential and also commercial operations on the first floor of that. That is something that will happen. It'll happen soon. As far as the Eagles Club, it very well may be a parking lot, but a parking lot probably would look better than a building that is falling down. The East Town Plaza or East Town commercial building there down on the Bermuda Triangle, I guess you want to call it, that also has been a vacant area. The city has taken our public works people, our street crews, have been inside there in times of slowness, when they weren't plowing snow, when they weren't mowing grass, when they weren't building roads. They were in there knocking down walls, opening that area up for a potential tenant or tenants to make it more desirable. Opens up a lot of different opportunities for that. And again, without the city's involvement there, those would be vacant eyesores.
Thank you. Our last question this evening will go to Todd Ferkey. I'm going to combine two. One is specifically about the downtown Riverbank revitalization. Okay, here's the question. Do you support the downtown Riverbank revitalization project? And then another is, do you have any ideas for the city's aging infrastructure? I know they're kind of different, but.
Yeah, they're very different. As far as the riverfront development, yes, I do approve of the riverfront development. There will
Okay,
be,
let's make it two different questions.
Sure.
So here's the question. We'll do it two more. Do you support the downtown Riverbank revitalization project?
I do. I support it very much
We have
so.
time.
And again, the river 100 years ago, 150 years ago, was the reason people located here. It was because of the ability to float logs down the river, have a paper mill here. We need to capture the use of that river and revitalize it with fishing piers, and that's part of the riverfront development. Down by the hospital, Demetz Park, we'll have a splash pad. We'll also have a nicer boat ramp, shelters for kids to play. So certainly having a riverfront enhancements, also having the East Riverfront walking trail that'll run from the Riverview Expressway Bridge all the way to Buren, right? So it's going to be a very big asset and a draw, just like the riverfront development in Stevens Point up by Piffner Park. You know, it will be lighted. It'll be an opportunity to take your wife, your girlfriend, not both, for a walk and certainly enjoy the riverfront. That's what we're looking for. So, thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, those are two important questions. Lee Graf, do you support the downtown Riverbank revitalization project?
I support aspects of it. Once again, I'm a doer. I have some logistical issues with the downtown project. One, the aquatic center, I believe, is a $12 million project. The downtown development, the Riverbank development's, I think, a $10 million project. The triangular project, where I think we fell down, is that we cleared a lot without any plans moving forward, and now we're looking for a developer, and I don't know how much that's going to cost. So I really caution the city and spending the taxpayers' money and bonding out a lot of money in order to go after a riverbank project. Now, if it's a pavilion we need right across the Tribune, or right in front of the Tribune building, I think those are the easy win projects that we should be doing. 2 years ago when I ran, we talked about this exact same issue. Unfortunately, we haven't done anything. We've approved some minutes and we've approved some money for it, but we haven't stuck a shovel in the ground. If we wanted to put lighting in the river, which is another part of that project, once again, I would ask that we partner with Midstate, work with Midstate to find out if there's a solar way that we can do it. They have a renewable resource there, program there, that might be able to help us out with that project, and we could actually work together with Midstate Technical College. So as far as the Riverbank project, I do think there's portions and aspects of the project that are worth doing. I think the entirety of the project, I think it's time that our city really takes a look at where we prioritize. We have the YMCA going up. Our city should be backing any and all efforts to build the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club. And then is it the aquatic center, because we've been out without aquatics for 2 years? Is that the next step? And then is it the riverbank? So where does it start and where does it stop? But to answer the question, in short, I do believe with some of the riverbank project. I just don't believe with the entirety of it.
Thank you. Here's our last question, and we'll start with Lee Graf. What is your plan regarding the city's aging infrastructure, and how do you propose to pay for it?
I think it's, I don't know if it's the evolution of every industry out there, and the city is no different. We've reduced manpower down so much that we don't have the ability to do the work in-house anymore. We see the same thing at the mill. So I don't think the city is different in that matter. But truth of the matter is we don't have the people to do it in-house, so it costs us a lot more money to do it somewhere else. Now, whether that's road patching or working with the water and light company to have them redo some of the sewers, the water, the light, that kind of thing. But we really need to start looking at what it is we want to be good at from the city standpoint. If it's working on water mains that are breaking on the east side of town all the time. It seems like every year. I know just down the road from my house, I don't think there's a winter that goes by that we're not breaking water mains. And that's not, once again, I don't believe that's any of the city's fault. I just think that it's something that we just have to decide as a city what we want to be good at, tool up for it, man up for it, and continue to execute those plans. That's where I think we need to go.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey.
Okay, thank you. The addition of Joe Terry as the Department of Public Works Director, is been such an asset to the city. Right now, we are mapping out the city sewer, city water, where some of the sewer, especially along First Street, that was actually just redone this last year and the year before, some of that sewer piping was 100 years old. So was certainly time to do that. Also, with our sewer, streets and sewer department, they are on a regular schedule as far as cleaning out, taking roots out of the sewer lines and stuff like that, because that can be a problem, especially over on the east side. Robinson Park area has been exposed to a great deal of that. Mr. Rayom can attest to that. So having a regular schedule as far as maintenance on the sewer lines certainly is helping alleviate some problems that way. Having Joe there in his collaboration with the water and light, so we're all on the same page. If a road needs to have a new surface done, and the utility says, well, we're looking at maybe doing the new utilities on that in 5 years down the road. Well, maybe the city will put off resurfacing it for the 5 years, or maybe we'll come to an agreement or a compromise working together, so you're not ripping up a road that was installed 5 years ago or 4 years ago. Because a lot of these roadways, certainly people know, have been in place, the same surface area for 35 years. And we need to work together as a city with the different departments, different utilities, to make sure that things are done in a more efficient and orderly fashion.
Thank you, and thank you, candidates, for your responses to those questions. It's now time to move on to closing statements, and we will begin with Lee Graf.
Well, first off, I want to thank everybody coming down tonight. Thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum. It's always good to have an open debate with Todd. This is our second time, so.
Second time.
But yeah, in closing, I really want to shore up what our city's doing financially. We need to really focus in on some projects. Let's pick one. Let's get one done, whatever that project is, and wherever we are in that project. And I think that we have the ability to do it. We have a lot of smart people in this community. As Todd alluded to, I've had the ability to work with Joe Terry on that Mead Field project. And even working with American Legion, RISA, Men and Women Softball Association, it's been great. I think we can break down some of these barriers that maybe I've always been there, maybe I've only been there a short time, but it's something that we need to do, and I look forward to helping. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Todd Ferkey.
Thank you. Just for clarification on the East Riverfront development, there is a lot of state money already funding that project. It's not going to be all city money. The YMCA, Boys and Girls Club development will happen, is happening. There's zero city dollars involved with that. So that clarification there. As far as the Triangle property, where the Labor Temple was and the old fire station, East Side Fire Station, that will be developed. We do have a contractor and a developer that we're working with now. We've seen some plans even 3 months ago. We went back to the developer and said, we'd like a little more commercial portion of that, not just so much residential, but some commercial portion, more than what you have shown us now. So those are some things that I wanted to say. Also, I am thankful, humbled by the District 2 citizenry that have elected me in the last 4 years. Mr. Graf is a very honorable person. He is a neighbor, and I'm sure whatever the District 2 decides, they will be happy with. And I am thankful for the others that have served our community, other aldermen, our mayor, and his opponent. I'm sure both are very willing and humble servants. And I have done my best. I put in a lot of hours for the city and for my neighbors. And if that is good enough, I would appreciate your support. If it is not, certainly you have a fine candidate here too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our two candidates for Wisconsin Rapids Aldermanic District 2, Todd Ferkey and his challenger Lee Graf. Thank you to the studio audience for those questions. And to our audience at home, stay tuned. After a break, we will return with the two candidates for Wisconsin Rapids Mayor. Welcome back to the middle portion of tonight's forum. We are featuring the candidates for Wisconsin Rapids Mayor. Here with us tonight is Mayor Zach Vruwink and his challenger, Keith Hetzel. Our candidates will be posed with questions from our viewing audience at home. You can phone those in at 715-423-0441, and we'll continue to take questions also from our studio audience. Earlier, we drew for order of speaking. The candidates will deliver 2 minutes for opening statements, 2 minutes for closing statements, and have the opportunity to respond up to 2 minutes for each question. And Zach Vruwink won the draw, so he will deliver his opening statement first.
Thank you. Well, good evening, and it's great to be with all of you tonight to share in a discussion really about the future of our city and our ideas for leadership going forward. Thanks to the League for hosting us. I'm a 2006 graduate of Lincoln High School and a 2000 graduate of UWSP in political science and public administration. And I intentionally chose to return to this community after growing up here and immediately after graduation to continue to run my small business, and because I saw firsthand the effects of too few of me and my generation returning to this community. We needed then and still need young adults today passionate about our city's future, willing to invest their time to make a difference. And for me, it continues to be a great honor to hold this office, to put my energy, my ideas, and my education and my business experience to the work at the City Hall on a daily basis. I ran for mayor 6 years ago on the premise that our city needed renewal in its ideas, in its attitude, in its approaches, and in action. We couldn't rely on the past methods and practices to get us on a path of prosperity, and we needed to modernize, to become a city of action, doing critical foundational work. Oftentimes it isn't seen or understood by our residents, but I'm proud to stand here today to seek re-election because since day one, we've together done just that. In my time, we've also experienced a resurgence of investment brought about by municipal collaboration and private sector collaboration, found efficiencies in city operations, involved technology in more of what we do. We continue to see more people return to this area to live, work, and raise a family while also retaining lifelong residents. New small businesses have opened in recent highs, and hiring is in the upswing. We've also continued the long, difficult process of healing from economic shock and job loss, oftentimes challenging our optimism and actions intended to bring about new vitality. We must continue on a path of action, and I'm proud to be here tonight to have a discussion here about the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Hetzel.
Thank you. And to the League of Women Voters, thank you for inviting me this evening. This is a great honor to be here. I don't have much of a prepared statement. Why am I running for mayor? Because of the fact that I grew up here. I graduated from Lincoln High School in '76. I went away to college, came back here several times, have been out in the world. I came back here 5 years ago next month to take care of my ailing parents. What I came back to was a city that was so foreign to me. Retail was down, jobs were down, everything was down. Yeah, it's a great place to raise a city, but you can't raise a city if you're going to just have $10 an hour jobs with few benefits. We see an awful lot of people who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And I think we need to revitalize those kinds of jobs that are going to allow our families that are currently here to make a living. Secondly, we need to create jobs that are going to draw in the younger people. It's a known fact that millennials like to work and live where they're all putting everything together. They want to live where they work. If they don't have jobs here, they're not going to move here. Yeah, we can have all the other things going here, but if we don't have the jobs, they're not going to want to come here. This has become a bedroom community, and unfortunately, it's really kind of sad. So let's try to revitalize by reinventing who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question will go to Keith Hetzel first. How would you bring more industry, vitality, and young families to our community?
Okay. First off, I would want to make sure that I'm partnering with Midstate through their economic development program. They can get involved where they go out to the businesses and they say, great, what do you need? Midstate has done surveys. They have found out that there are jobs here. The problem is we don't have skilled workers to fulfill those jobs. So we need to make sure that those jobs are being fulfilled with people that have skills. How are we going to revitalize this? We want to make this user-friendly for a city. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our millennials are coming back here by making sure that we have recreation for them. They want recreation. We need to give them recreation, year-round recreation. We need to make sure that we have shopping for them so they're not traveling 30 miles in any one direction just to have to buy a pair of shoes. How are we going to draw those young people in here? Through jobs. We can only do it if we don't have jobs, we can't draw people in.
Thank you. Zach Vruwink.
Well, as a millennial myself, I think I have a pretty decent understanding of what it takes to attract young families and adults to this community. And millennials generally first want to find a place that they like to live. They don't often find employment first. That's actually the second thing that millennials look for when they're choosing a community to live. As oftentimes they're willing to seek employment in other communities, they're willing to trade off and concede their place where they're going to lay their head for the community that they work. So that's the first and foremost, is to continue to invest in family sustaining or attractive amenities to a community. The city's housing stock is something that the city has focused on a lot in my time in office, because we found that through study and through research that our housing stock was much more aged and was much more out of date than housing in neighboring communities. And that's no surprise to all of us. We were a manufacturing community and still are in many respects. So addressing some of our housing needs is certainly an issue. And then as it relates to industry attraction, the economic development model and strategies of yesterday, where there was much more smokestack chasing and attracting businesses to a community, those economic development models are often too costly and are broken to apply to communities like ours. And so I believe firmly in creating a community where families want to live first. They're going to move, start businesses, or go to work for existing businesses second, and then ultimately continuing to invest in the amenities that our families and businesses want to locate near, as well as invest their money.
Thank you. Our second question will be posed to Mayor Vruwink. What is your plan regarding the city's aging infrastructure, and how do you propose to pay for it?
It's a great question. Cities all across the country are faced with this exact same issue. Our city's infrastructure, much of it was built around the same time, so we're really faced with making trade-offs. When the state hands us really strong marching orders where we can't raise new revenue, we can't increase our tax levy, we've got to make some really strategic decisions about how we spend our money on infrastructure. And in this town, we've done, in my time, really invested our time in a capital improvements plan. And that capital improvements plan accounts for all of our infrastructure, not only our street surfaces, which we all know a lot about, we drive on them every day, but the unseen infrastructure, our wastewater, our water, our sewer, and our electric grid. And I can say confidently that our city's in a better position today because we have planned for the future. We have identified various funding sources and really put forth equity when it comes to residents versus industry paying for infrastructure. A lot of our industry relies on our infrastructure, particularly our wastewater plant. And in my time, we've really rebalanced the tables to find ways for industry to pay for more of an equitable share of our city's infrastructure. But it also goes to connecting with state and federal resources. A lot of communities are much more successful than Wisconsin Rapids has been in attracting investment for infrastructure. And it all goes to telling our story. We cannot be any more humble oftentimes in how we tell our community's story. And I believe as we consider seeking economic impact and investment from the state and federal government, like we've done with our airport and successfully attracting $4 million for investment there, there's plenty more examples to go around, but it's all goes down to having a solid plan and working that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Hetzel. I'll repeat the question if you need it. What is your plan regarding the city's aging infrastructure, and how do you propose to pay for it?
We need to address this very seriously, and if you read the Daily Tribune recently, you found out that $90 million was cut out of the state budget for helping communities with infrastructure, such as ours, to benefit Foxconn. We need to bring in more business into our community. We need to up our tax base. We've been losing our tax base. So if we can bring our tax base up, we'll have those extra dollars so that we can actually add into the infrastructure replacement so that we can take care of what we need to take care of. Yeah, it's not everything just above. Looking over things for 2019, I see the city has committed to the East Grand Avenue reconstruction, about $4.1 million, and the last I could find anything, there was nothing on what the city was going to be responsible for, but I understand that it's the underground stuff that the city will be responsible for, and the state would be giving us the surface area. We need to make sure that we have those dollars in place, because this came as a shock to not only this community, but to communities across the state of Wisconsin. And we need to make sure that we have the resources so that we can, if something like that happens again, we can take care of it.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Keith Hetzel first. What do you think of the concept of a city administrator instead of a mayor or alongside a mayor?
I know that when I was a student in Oshkosh and then living there later, they have a city administrator rather than a mayor, and what they do is the aldermen take turns acting as a mayor. It seems to work out okay, but I still think that in a community like ours, the mayor system really does present itself in a much better light because of the fact that you have somebody who the citizens can relate to. They can say, this is our mayor, this is who we go to for the problems of the city, and this is who we want us to lead. When you have a city administrator in place of a mayor, you have, it's kind of a nebulous type thing. You're not really quite sure who's in charge this year. Working alongside, as long as they're defined boundaries, I don't see a problem in it.
Thank you. Zach Vruwink.
You know, I think there's certainly pros and cons to it. You see a city manager, form of government like Oshkosh, city administrator, form of government as in other communities, or a strong mayor like we have. And I think the beautiful thing about a strong mayor form of government is being in the local level is you're closest to the people. And so you're much more responsive, and you have to listen to the concerns and generally act on them, or you're probably not going to stay in office for very long. So I think really leveraging the benefits and the strengths of having a strong mayor form of government serves us well. I do see that from a long-range planning standpoint, as well as continuity, that in our city, the sheer reality is you could change mayors every 2 years. And I think that could be an inherent barrier and concern for our model, because you would never have continuity. You could have chaos if you weren't continuing with various initiatives, especially because the mayor is responsible for supervising the 13 department heads at the city. And so thinking about the marching orders and the direction that those department heads need from the mayor could really be tumultuous if you have a high turnover in the position of mayor. Fortunately, our city has had long-serving mayors over the course of our history to provide continuity and leadership over a longer period of time. So my personal preference is a strong mayor form of government. Of course, I'm partial because I've served in that model, but I do think throughout my studies, political science and public administration, there are certainly benefits to having a city administrator. It's really what fits the community's character, and I think ultimately the city council has that authority and decision making for themselves. So my opinion as an individual really doesn't carry a tremendous amount of weight. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, it's our fourth question. We'll go to Mayor Zach Vruwink. What is your opinion on the recent state action to limit local authority?
So there's a tremendous amount of limits to local authority. It's called preemption. I'm not sure what the question specifically speaks to, but even in the state budget, the last state budget, there's been a tremendous amount of rolling back of local control and local decision making, which is very concerning, right? I believe as the city's elected official, city's mayor, that our city knows best, and so does our residents, not the state. And I think no matter where we've turned in my time in office, we have turned, we found ourselves among more and more preemption of local control. And I think whether it's public financing and how we raise money to pay for things like our infrastructure or our roads, how we invest in public facilities, community centers, and those types of things, we're very, very restricted when you consider the 50 states in the country when it comes down to how we finance and pay for things. And I think that's a major concern. The specific to the question, I don't believe there was a specific indication on local control or rollback, but it's been all over the place. And I think it goes to show that mayors and city officials and city council members really need to be speaking with our legislators and holding them accountable, because they're the ones making the decisions to preempt cities from being able to enact certain policies and ordinances. And I believe, again, we know best at the local level. We may not always be the experts or have the perspective of the state legislature, but we believe that, I believe that locally we should be able to make those decisions for ourselves. So it's very concerning. And I hope that time will come when the legislature hears from enough of us across the city, cities and villages to make an impact, that they would reconsider some of the preemption that they've taken action on. Thank you.
Thank you. Question to Keith Hetzel. Repeat the question?
Repeat the question, please.
What is your opinion on the recent state actions to limit local authority?
We've always been told for many years that government is interfering. Big government is always interfering. But with these kinds of programs coming in and saying, gee, you're going to limit what you can do, there's government interfering in what's going on in the city. I have to agree with the mayor. Madison doesn't know what we're doing up here. They don't really care. They just want to make sure that we're not spending any money so that we look better than they do.
That's probably true.
We need to make sure that we have that control. If our citizens are paying taxes to the city of Wisconsin Rapids, the city of Wisconsin Rapids has the right to determine how those tax dollars are going to be spent.
Thank you. This question will go to Challenger Keith Hetzel first. Do you support the downtown Riverbank revitalization project?
Yes, I do. I support it with the understanding that it's looking like we're going to be spending a lot of money on this. I would rather have seen it portioned out over several years so that it's not such a huge, huge amount of money. We're talking roughly $27 million, I believe. Okay? Now add into that the aquatic center. We're talking nearly $40 million in projects, not infrastructure, not creating jobs. We're talking just these other projects. Yes, we need to have these things because a lot of people do use the riverfront. But when I first saw the design for the riverfront, especially Veterans Park, where there was going to be a river swimming hole in the floating area there, I thought, how can you put that into the river? Really? Especially on the east side where the current is much stronger. We need to revitalize the downtown. We need to revitalize where our families are going to enjoy themselves. And I want to make sure that this goes on for many years. But I think we also need to look at being realistic. I'm more of a realist than anything else. And we need to realistically look at, can we support a $40 million programs for revitalization in this year alone? If we compare that, I was just reading online the other day that the NRA actually spent $30 million to help President Trump get elected. We're going $10 million over that. It's a little struggle for this community, for 18,000 people.
Thank you. Zach Vruwink.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure, if I can find it. Riverbank. Do you support the downtown Riverbank revitalization project?
Thank you. I certainly do, and I appreciate Keith's comments and appreciate that he supports it as well. I do want to offer some clarification, and because I want to make sure that the public knows this, and I'll take it upon myself because I think there's been a lot of misinformation about the project and the price tag of the project. The city has broken the project into phases, recognizing you can only do so much in a limited period of time. So our first phase of that project is about $2 million, just over $2 million, with 50% of that project cost actually coming from a state grant. So certainly agree, we can't do everything at once. We can't afford to do everything at once. And so that's why we're taking baby steps to really bring about, number one, bank stabilization. If we don't maintain the stabilization of the banks, we will lose them in major flooding events, especially as they're starting to occur more frequently and with greater strength. So $2 million for the first phase, and ultimately future phases will have to be funded. We believe, as we did in this first phase, through public-private partnership, leveraging state resources even to match our local resources. As it relates to the aquatic center, which was brought up, so I want to respond to that. The city's currently committed only $5 million to that project. In the same vein as the Riverfront project, we need to leverage outside investment. We need to attract contributions, both from those living here, those businesses that are doing business here, and those that believe in our work, as we've done successfully through attraction of state resources in the Riverbank project. I believe that it's riverfront development and such projects that really create family and entertaining places for really residents of all ages. When we're talking about recreational amenities, as Keith actually brought up early on, that we need to create spaces, we need to leverage the asset that we have in our riverfront, and we can't afford to lose its beautiful banks to the river in major flooding events. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Zach Vruwink first. It's from the previous forum with the men. What do you believe should be the city's role in the removal or development of blighted properties?
I think the city has a major role to play, but its role needs to be limited based upon, again, the controlling factor of how much it can afford to do. It's a hot button issue. We've been involved in a number of removal of homes throughout the city, some that have been very run down. And on the Lamplight on First Street, heard a lot about the neighborhood up there. I really wanted to see that down. It wasn't safe. I mean, there's a lot of blighted properties throughout our city that people are living in that I'm ashamed to admit exist in our city, and we need to do something about that. And I believe that the property owner has a responsibility as well. A lot of rental properties are subpar. And unfortunately, based on the preemption question, we're very limited about hosting any sort of rental inspection program. But I believe the city needs a rental inspection program. We owe it to our residents to have good quality housing to live in. So when it comes to blighted properties, one project that we're going to be kicking off, hopefully if the city council approves it at some point, is a proposal from the sale of the foundries. The foundry just over here, it's been long talked about that we should deal with that property because now it's vacant. Now it's been blighted to some for quite some time, and it'll have to be cleaned up for redevelopment to occur. So I believe the city does have a strong responsibility to play. It needs to be disciplined, though, in how much it spends on removal of blighted properties, especially when has a responsibility, especially when it impacts the neighboring properties and the property values. Many people in our city take great pride in their properties. They invest in their properties, and the last thing we need is someone coming in, an absentee landlord or an out-of-town property owner, not taking on the responsibility of maintaining their property. And it concerns me as an individual. I don't want one of those on my block or in my neighborhood, nor should anybody in the city have to pay the price of that.
Thank you. Challenger Keith Hetzel, the question is, what do you believe should be the city's role in the removal or development of blighted properties?
I would have to agree with the mayor and say that if we have blighted properties, yeah, we should be getting rid of these things. They bring values down. They cause health hazards. If they are empty, they can draw in all kinds of vermin and sickness and everything else. We don't want those things. We don't need those things, and we shouldn't have those things. Again, yeah, you have a lot of absentee landlords. They're here just to collect the money. They don't care about the building. They don't want to care about the building. They just want to collect their money. Should we be buying up a lot of other properties, however, that just, they're in good shape, but they're just kind of an inconvenience? No, I don't think that the city should be getting into the real estate business in that area. But if we do have blighted areas, yes, let's move forward with that so that we have opportunities that we can turn around, sell those properties, and get somebody in there that's going to take care of that property.
Thank you. Keith Hetzel will take the next question. What are 3 positive things happening in Wisconsin Rapids right now?
3 positive things that are happening in Wisconsin Rapids right now are the YMCA project, the riverfront development, and also the aquatic center. Those are 3 positives because of the fact that when I was circulating my papers for nomination, I heard from a lot of parents that were excited about the pool. They were kind of disappointed that it was going to take 2 years to get it in here, but that's a big thing. The Y is going to actually take the old mall. It's going to redo the property, even though it's coming off the tax pro rolls, which kind of impacts the budget. I think it will be a great asset because people will be driving along the expressway. They'll be able to see this brand new building and know that we're concerned about health. These are all the projects that are going on here right now. We have the riverfront, we've got the aquatic center. And I'm sorry, at my age, coming up to 60 in a few weeks, I've forgotten the third one, but I do see these as positives, and I see these bringing our city forward into the future.
Thank you. Mayor Zach Vruwink, 3 positive things happening in Wisconsin Rapids right now.
Well, I'll say 3 plus 3 more, so I agree with everything Keith said. But certainly, I think in the business environment, in the private sector, there's a number of great things happening, and I'll outline a couple of them. First and foremost, our Riverview Hospital, a major health player, institution that will be even a greater player as we move forward, investing $30 million right now. They've created over 40 jobs in the last year and a half, all of which our decent paying and family sustaining wages, and also ensure that we can seek and receive care right in our own community without having to travel large distances. So I think Aspirus's investment, and that's only phase 1 of their project, and they haven't shared exactly their plans for phase 2, but we're very excited about their investment. Mariani in the Rapids East Commerce Park created 35 jobs this year through a $15 million expansion that they did over on the Rapids East Commerce Park in 48th Street. And countless small businesses. I mean, I think I attended 12 ribbon cuttings last year, and the majority of those new businesses were opened by females. I think that's a really cool thing, and I think as a male, we have to step up, because I think there's women are taking leaps. They're very they're taking risks. I think they're putting their lives and family income on the line to do things in our city, and those things are really inspiring to me, and obviously keep me motivated to stand up for the city and fight for it every day. Certainly, the community facilities that were talked about. There's a major project that happened over at over at Mead Field with the splash pad, and I think the future of that development, if it gets funded and private funding becomes available to attract through the master plan of reorganizing the fields, we can attract more ball fields and more recreational activities as this community. So that really rounds out the 6 that I would come up with if I was given 6. So the aquatic center, certainly, the Riverbank project, the downtown development. We've got developers that are looking at this community in growing numbers, and that is so cool, because finally we're not a place that's hounding developers to come cross into our city boundaries, but they're certainly looking at opportunities here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again for our viewers and those of you in the studio for your questions. Next question to Zach Vruwink. What will you do to further reduce the city's carbon footprint?
It's a great question. We've done a few things in the environmental sustainability and energy consumption space through the Mayor's Council on Sustainability. There's a couple of you in this room that are on that council, so thank you for your efforts, and obviously the efforts you do outside of that. We supported wholeheartedly the library's purchase and pursuing a solar installation on the roof of the library. It's the largest solar installation in central Wisconsin, surprisingly. So they're going to be able to, in 15 years, pay that back and then ultimately go off the grid in a good portion. I think there's a lot more the city can do to reduce its carbon footprint. One thing we've done, again, one of those things that's pretty quiet and under the radar, but we've started reporting all of our city's energy consumption and usage, which impacts our CO2 footprint, obviously, to a national reporting so we can start benchmarking ourselves against other cities. And so we just did that last year. This year will be our second year to find out if we're making measurable improvement. Obviously, there's a lot of hidden in plain sight type of things we can do to retrofit buildings and reduce our energy consumption. But I think in the area of anti-idling, it pains me to walk around or bike around or drive around the city and see city fleet vehicles burning fossil fuels. What an expense to the taxpayer. Now, you may not change the world by that, but it's something that bothers me as an individual, because I believe we should leave this planet cleaner than we found it. So I think there's a lot of other environmental stewardship activities we can be taking, particularly in the sphere of energy consumption. Our buildings, we've done a lot of it already, so you're just scratching the surface. But I think even on operations of our city projects, when we're doing construction projects and things, there's mobilization costs, obviously, when you're moving product back and forth from projects, but you're also burning fuel and causing expense. So I think there's a lot more we can do. The city does have a sustainability plan. Some of us have worked to update it and to make it a little bit more user-friendly and understood by departments, but it takes effort, and it takes hounding city staff to make sure we're continuing to honor our objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Hetzel, what can you do to help further reduce the city's carbon footprint?
I have to agree with the mayor. I think we need to look more at solar energy. We need to look at wind energy. We need to find those things, but the city needs to be the leader. So let's get those solar panels on our city garage. Let's get them on the city hall. Let's get them in the areas that we need them. Let's show that we are really committed to this. It's great to have the library do this, but you can say, gee, we're going to put in switches that are going to turn off after 3 minutes if there's no movement in the room. That's going to help, but we also need to do a whole lot more than that. This is a community that, let's face it, if you've lived here very long, you know what it was like. It's a lot better, but it can be a whole lot more improved than what it is right now. When I was a kid, you used to walk across the Grand Avenue Bridge and you would see foam on the river. And in among the foam, you used to see dead carp. The river is really cleaned up. We've cleaned up that portion of it. We need to clean up our air, and we need to clean up our ground, because of the fact there's a lot of contaminants in the ground, and we need to make sure that those contaminants come out of the ground so that they're not infecting people in the future.
Thank you. Our last question for this portion of the forum will be posed to Keith Hetzel first. What are some of the barriers to economic growth in the city, and what can you do?
I think some of the barriers to growth here are the fact that people don't know that there are programs that can help them out so that they can start their businesses, so that we can help them grow. We need to help them find places. We need to work with Midstate so that we can get these programs going. They have the economic development. We need to really, as a city, tap into that for prospective people coming in. By doing so, we're going to help grow the economy in here. We're going to help a lot of people out. We have a lot of people working out of their homes, I'm sure. I'm not going to go knocking on doors right now and say, gee, you have a home business right now. But the fact that if it's getting to that point, let's get them so that they can really be a viable source rather than just be hidden. To have all this hidden stuff just really doesn't keep our economy flowing the way it needs to.
Thank you. Zach Vruwink.
I think, there's a lot of impediments and challenges that we face that we cannot change and cannot control, and we can all come up with our own list, but I think there are a number of things we can change. We talked a little bit about housing tonight and the fact that our quality and our quantity and our availability of housing in this community could get better. I think our downtown is something that many of us have a lot of pride in. Some of us have historical perspectives that maybe it was much different and better than it used to be, and I think there are opportunities to bring economic activity and vitality back to our downtown. But I also think it's through collaboration that our city hasn't always collaborated with one another or worked out of silos, and I think in my time in office, just the collaborations that have happened, and whether or not it had anything to do with them or not, we all know that the mayor doesn't control everything, but really just the attitudes and the perceptions related to working with one another. And I think community today versus community 15 years ago, we're in a much better place and willing to work together to move things forward. I also think one challenge that we can control somewhat with is just the educational attainment of our residents. I think, and people we attract to this community. One thing that concerns me is the major cuts at the UW level. Well, how does that affect Wisconsin Rapids economic development? Well, if we can't seek education down the road at places like Stevens Point, we're not going to attract people to live back in this community, and they're simply not going to. We're not going to have as many people living in this community with higher education. And I think it's great to be working with Midstate Technical College. They fit a very specific need, but we have much more advocacy and work to do to communicate a message of economic development and growth in this community. And there's so many things, the list goes on, but those are a few that come to mind as it relates to impediments to economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements from our mayoral candidates, and we will begin with Keith Hetzel.
Thank you. It's been a real honor and privilege to be here this evening. I would do everything I can to make sure that as your mayor, I represent every last citizen here in the United States. I don't think so. Here in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, from the millennials and to the children, all the way to those senior citizens that are living in nursing homes and things like that. Every person needs to be represented by the mayor. We have a lot of work to do in the city. We've done a lot of things in the city, but we still have an awful lot to do. I went to the Encourage Foundation presentation last night, and I was quite moved by a lot of the things that I heard. There were a lot of really great comments from the survey that was taken last fall. Things like, we want to see change. We want to see more jobs. We want to see this. There were a few discerning things, but I'm not going to get into those because that's not what this is about. Where are we going to take the city in the next few years? As mayor, I would come up with a master plan to say, this is what we're going to do in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We need to have some sort of a program that says that if the pool needs to be replaced, we're going to have another pool in place so that if we have to close the first one down, the second one will be open the next season. That didn't happen this year. It's a funding thing, I'm sure, but the fact that there were a lot of people who were really upset about that. We need to make sure that we have a plan so that we have growth and we can say, we're at this level now, but here's where we're going to be in 5 years, and here's where we're going to be in 10 years, and here's what we're going to do to get there. A great example of that is Plover, Wisconsin. They have come from basically nowhere to look where they're at today. We can use that as a model for our city, And thank you for your time, and I would appreciate your vote on April 3rd.
Thank you. Zach Vruwink.
All right. Well, thank you again for the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and for Keith for sharing his perspectives on how we can make the city a stronger city. In just under 3 weeks, voters will head to the polls again to select their mayor for the next term. And it is my hope that after tonight's discussion, you're more informed about the issues and the many ways my administration and city council have worked together to address them. There are efforts and projects occurring in levels beyond the activity of the last 15 years, and it's very exciting and the privilege to be a part of those activities. Home values are evidence, and the sale prices have climbed 3% in the last number of years. Businesses are investing nearly $100 million of their own money into projects to invest in their businesses and create jobs. And the city continues to invest in critical infrastructure as well as the community facilities necessary to become an attractive place for prospective residents, for current residents, and for future residents generations to come. But we also need to continue to pay attention to our neighbors. We need to find out what they're doing that we might be able to rip off and repeal and do in our own community and make happen. I'm proud that the city has and continues to take calculated risks for the long-term economic benefit of our city. We continue to have a lot more work to do to grow incomes. Families are not earning as much on par as other communities across the state, and obviously create jobs and grow businesses. And we need to continue to fight the decline that is happening in neighborhoods, and obviously the illegal drug use that impacts families and children. We've made progress in the short time since the last election and during my time in office. But as we all know, things take time, and together we have a lot more to do. I'm confident, if given the chance, we will continue to make this city a much more positive place for people to choose to live and to raise their families. And it's been a tremendous honor to represent and lead this great city, and I ask for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our two candidates. Keith Hetzel and Zach Vruwink will be on the April 3rd general election ballot for Wisconsin Rapids mayor. After a short break, we will return with our candidates for Wisconsin Rapids City Clerk. Thank you.
Good job.
Welcome back to the third portion of tonight's League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. We're pleased to bring you two candidates for Wisconsin Rapids City Clerk. They are our current City Clerk, Paul Przybelski, and challenger, Judy Velazquez. They will both be on the April 3rd general election ballot. The League of Women Voters is happy to provide this forum, co-sponsored by Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Once again, we are happy to take questions from our studio audience and our viewing audience at 715-423-0441. Our candidates will respond to questions with 2-minute responses, and then they will also have a 2-minute open and a 2-minute closing statement. We will begin with Judy Velazquez with a 2-minute opening statement.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me here. I'm very excited to be able to have a chance to speak to the voters of Wisconsin Rapids. There's one thing I want to tell you is I am not a politician, and I've never ran a campaign, and I've learned a lot of things while I have been doing this. But who I am, again, is a mother of 3 adult children. I've worked for the city of Rapids for 22 years, for the last 12 years at the street department. I love what I do there. I love public service. It's kind of my calling. The reason I want to run for city clerk is I believe that the Wisconsin Rapids needs a full-time city clerk that will strengthen the office, and I believe I am that person. I think a transparent government is necessary to develop a trust between the local residents and the government, and we need to close that gap. I'm the type of person that will be out there communicating and out in the community and talking to people, finding out what their concerns are, and I'm driven to do this. I just feel it's going to be a very natural step for me from the street department into the clerk's office, and I have a passion for it right now. This is the first time I've ever had to speak publicly in front of a forum like this, so don't hold it against me if I have notes and I get a little nervous. There's a first time for everything, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that can maybe relate to this, so thank you.
Thank you. Paul Przybelski.
Hello and good evening. My name is Paul Przybelski. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum, as well as Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. I'd like to welcome in those who are viewing on television and also any of those who are listening on WFHR. I was appointed city clerk by the Common Council in May of 2016, shortly after finishing my education in political science at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. During my time at City Hall, I have decreased my office's budget twice, which is not a large budget to begin with, while increasing its efficiency through reviewing old processes and implementing new revitalized processes, such as in-person or early absentee voting schedules. It used to be just 2 weeks, and now the state law has changed, and we extended that out for the voters. I have administered 7 open and fair elections thus far, including the 2016 presidential elections, which saw one of the largest primary turnouts in the city of Wisconsin Rapids history. I wish to continue in this capacity because I am experienced in carrying out new and ever-changing election laws. I am involved in many city initiatives, such as the Mayor's Youth Council, the Aquatics Fundraising Committee, and a new committee we just established for oversight of the new website creation. I have a great working relationship with city staff, and I genuinely enjoy serving the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question will be posed to Paul Przybelski first. What do you think is the most important function that a city clerk has?
The most important function, well, there are several functions that are important. The single most important is election administration, of which I have administered 7 so far. I already touched on the presidential election, which is really the granddaddy of them all when it comes to election administration. I have had an excellent time training my election workers. I have an excellent relationship with the county clerk's office and their staff. The thing about elections is that the rules of the game can change very quickly. You can, just in my tenure, my first election was the first election in the state of Wisconsin that saw a requirement of photo ID in order to vote. It's not easy to train a pool of 40 or 50 election workers on how to properly review photo ID when they also need to know how to register voters and make sure that the poll books are properly adhered to. So I certainly think election administration is the most important job duty because of the myriad of federal and state laws that regulate it. However, I don't want to underplay the significance of other duties, such as liquor licensing for local businesses. That's a very intricate process. It requires many forms, and these forms need to be filled out correctly, otherwise the Department of Revenue is going to be knocking on your door and you're going to be in trouble. And that, as well as open meeting law. You know, I preside over many city committees as a parliamentarian, as well as the Common Council. And so I just don't want to underplay the significance of the many duties of the city clerk's office. And also I wanted to signify that election administration is the most important.
Thank you. The question for Judy Velazquez, what do you think is the most important function a city clerk has?
I think the elections are important, but they come around periodically. For me, public service and reaching out to the community is what I'm running on. I think you need to get out of your office and you need to talk to people where they live, work, and play. And that is what I will focus on. I want to make sure that information is being disseminated not only on our website, which we can do a much better job at in getting that information out, But for the elderly people, the people that can't get on the internet, how are we going to disseminate information to them? It's important to keep that line of communication open. And you can't do that hiding in your office. You have to get out there. Now, I have not run an election before, but there's a lot of things in my life I hadn't done. I used to work for Rockwell International. I was a subcontractor for the B1B contract. And I went into an office that had been sitting 3 months empty. And the first thing I had to do was prepare for a negotiation, $200,000. And I had 3 days to do it, to write a negotiation plan, get in there and negotiate, and get that order on file. So I'm not, the mechanics of a job I'm not afraid of. The interpersonal skills and the soft skills, I have those. And people that have worked or dealt with me at the street department and know me, they can attest for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Judy Velazquez. Do you support the appointment or direct election of the clerk's position?
I support the direct election. The people have kind of voted on that already, but the reason is that with an appointment, if you're not doing a good job or you take the job for granted, and you can't get rid of them, you're stuck with them. This way, if you don't do your job and stuff, you know that you can be replaced, and I like that idea. It keeps you on your toes, and so I definitely would keep the elective position for the clerk's office.
Thank you. Paul Przybelski.
Okay. Well, this is certainly a good question. I think that this decision, it's not a decision for Judy or I. It's a decision for the Common Council to make. And the Common Council, in my tenure, did choose to keep the position elected. There was also a referendum around a decade ago where the voters spoke and said it should be an elected position. Do I completely agree with that? No, but I agree with the Common Council and the democratic process making that decision. When you're talking about elected versus appointed, Judy talked about how if you're going to be appointed, there's less accountability, when in reality there's really more accountability if you're appointed. You have a boss. When you're elected, you have no boss. You cannot elect talent. You can appoint talent, but you cannot elect it. So as far as the appointment versus election debate, I think it's going to remain the status quo to be elected. However, in my capacity, I pledge to the voters to treat the position like a professional position instead of an elected position where you can do what you want and have no accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Paul Przybelski. What ideas do you have to promote more civic engagement in municipal government?
Certainly, that's another great question. Some things that I have done, I have already, I'm going to talk to the group here, but I've worked with League of Women Voters before. I've had my face out there in the community at events like the Grand Affair. I work with the Mayor's Youth Council. I help administer Kids to Park Day, which is a yearly event that's in conjunction with Cranberry Blossom Fest. I help on the Aquatics Fundraising Committee. I want the pool here too. I'm not a policymaker, but I certainly can be involved in helping city initiatives. Other ways that you can engage the community are just being open and transparent at the window. If anybody wants to contact me, there's many ways to get a hold of me. I receive tons of calls every day, regarding various things. And I'm able to talk to people regarding problems that involve the city garage or the engineering department or the finance department. So being engaged with the community is a very important aspect of the position. However, I would say that most importantly, it's just being involved in different groups and making sure that you have a outward place in the community and you can be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is for Judy Velazquez. What ideas do you have to promote more civic engagement in municipal government?
Well, I have taken the Heart of Wisconsin's community leadership class way before I thought I was going to be running for city clerk. So community involvement has always been very important to me. And I just wanted to add one thing, though. As an elected city clerk, you do have a boss. Your boss is the residents of Wisconsin Rapids. It is them that you have to answer to. And I remember that every day that I go to work. I don't think the street department is that different from the city clerk's office because I get flooded with questions. And you need to be able to answer them and direct them. And because I have the community leadership class and I'm out there volunteering in the community and I invite people to call me with their questions because that's what I do and stuff. People are comfortable around me when they talk to me. And like I said, I go out and I do as much for the community as I can. Now, my husband's been sick for the last 3 years, so it's kind of pulled back a little bit. But I've already talked with United Way and wanting to get out and volunteer a lot more now to try, since he's cancer-free, that's a good thing. And just getting out there and engage people. Find out what their interests are, what they like, and make that office a friendly environment so people aren't afraid to call their city clerk or come in and ask you questions.
Thank you. Our fourth question tonight will go to Judy Velazquez. What are the major challenges facing city clerks in Wisconsin, and how can you meet the challenges?
Well, I think budgetary and fiscal responsibility with the taxpayers' money is always an issue in any department. Implementing cost-saving measures and by streamlining work processes and getting rid of redundancy and wasteful, eliminating the time it takes to do some jobs, making sure you have the most advanced technology. Those are important issues that need to be taken care of. Another way you can save money is to make sure that you know all the job within that department. If someone gets sick or if there's a high volume, you should be able to know every aspect of that job. And that's the way I've always thought. You need to know if the administrative assistant isn't there. And sometimes when I call another department, this happens, the person's out sick, and you have to wait till they come back. So I just have a hands-on approach to leadership, and I think that I forgot. I lost my train of thought. So could you just repeat the question?
Sure.
Just a little bit.
What are the challenges facing city clerks in Wisconsin, and how can you meet those challenges?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would say getting people engaged with their government, closing that gap, and then the budgetary and financial responsibility to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Paul Przybelski.
Okay. The most important challenge facing the city clerk's office in my tenure has certainly been keeping voters' confidence. I mean, one of the big words that's been tossed around politics is Russian election meddling. The Russians did try to hack the state of Wisconsin voting system, and they were unsuccessful. And we need to be able to ensure to the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids, as well as many other municipal clerks in the state, need to ensure to the Wisconsin voters that we have secure elections, which we do, but that is certainly a big problem facing municipal clerks right now, is keeping voters' confidence. And, one of the things I like to tell some of the people I've seen who ask about voter fraud is, we did have to go through a rigorous recount after the 2016 election, and all the recount did was prove that municipal clerks in Wisconsin are very good at what they do. Another big challenge facing city clerks is rapid legislative changes. It's very difficult to keep track of all the changes. For instance, the other day I was helping a new business get a liquor license, and the form that we had always been used was changed the day prior, and it was a brand new form, so we had to review that new form and adjust to those changes. And I know that I am a very quick learner, and I can absolutely adjust to those changes as well as any municipal clerk in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question to Paul Przybelski. Why should you be elected City Clerk of Wisconsin Rapids?
Well, I'm going to preface this with the Common Council took a chance on me in 2016 when they appointed me. They hired me to do a job. I'd like to think I have met or exceeded their expectations, and I have provided a product to the City of Wisconsin residents in the City Clerk's office that is the best product that they could have as a resident. We operate an open and transparent office. I have no problem ever getting records to any voter or any citizen who wants records. I deal with open records requests every week. I deal with requests for minutes all the time. We're consistently trying to improve how we can disseminate information to our residents. And you can see those changes every day. We have a city calendar up on the website with agendas and minutes for every meeting. I keep my ordinances available in PDF format for anybody who wants them via email or anybody who comes to the front desk. All in all, I think that I've established a great relationship with city staff, and I really want to keep the momentum going because it's a great thing for the city of Wisconsin Rapids. And we've had no issue in the clerk's office in my tenure, and I certainly hope I can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Velazquez, why do you think you should be elected City Clerk for Wisconsin Rapids?
Well, I have 22 years experience in public service with the city. I feel entering the city clerk's office would be a natural transition for me. I didn't go into my education. I have a master's degree in business administration with a minor in social sustainability. And I obtained that master's degree while I was working 40 hours a week. And getting that degree was one of the proudest things I had done because I never had the opportunity to go to college after I graduated high school. And then after that, I went to the community leadership course. Working for 22 years, you develop relationships, internal and external. And when I started with the city, I was clerical relief, so I've worked in each one of those departments. I know what each department does. Being out in the community and the community leadership course really helped this too. I know what organizations people need to or can go to if they need advice, if they need help. Most of the time I try and answer their questions. But if I can't, I will direct them or find out for them. I think being an elected official is you have an obligation to the residents of this city. And if I had a chance, I'd be knocking on everybody's doors so they could ask me the questions on a more natural setting, but I don't. So I do have a website out, though, if anyone wants to visit it. It's judyforcityclerk.com. And I just would work hard. I would not be that 24/7 clerk. I would be that 24/7 clerk. I wouldn't hold natural or regular hours. I mean, on and off work, I'm the city clerk. So, thank you.
Thank you. It's time for our last question, and it will go to Judy Velazquez first. The city clerk's office can be viewed as the gateway to city government and the city in general. How will you work to make the experience better for new and existing residents?
I think communication is vital. I'm a little disappointed with our website that it doesn't share more information with people. Even just the elections, there's very little about the candidates that are running, and I think that we could do a lot better. Now, I know we're getting a new website, and I'll be anxious to see what that is, but just being engaging when you're talking to people and as helpful as you can. It's important that you have those soft skills, those interpersonal skills when you're dealing with people. Now, I used to be a dispatcher, and you have to deal with a lot of different types of people when you're doing that type of work. you also do when you're working at the street department. People are angry, people are upset, for various things. Most of the time they're sober, though. But I've learned how to deal with people. It's natural for me, So I think I would make a strong city clerk. I just feel it's a natural progression for me.
Thank you. Paul Przybelski.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. The city clerk's office can be viewed as the gateway to city government and the city in general. How will you work to make the experience better for new and existing residents?
Certainly. It's practically on a daily basis. Somebody's standing in the lobby at City Hall, looking around, not knowing where they're going, and I say, hey, how can I help you? What services are you looking for from the city government? Because I know exactly where they are, I know what documents you're going to need to bring in, and I know where to send you. And if that happens to be in my office, come on in, sit down. We'll talk about, do you need to get registered to vote? Do you want to apply for an absentee ballot? Do you want to apply for an absentee ballot or do you want to take an absentee application to your mother who's in one of our assisted care facilities? The city clerk's office is the most outward-facing city government or city department within City Hall. And in my tenure, I believe that we have operated very professionally and as well as very politely. And I have strived to make our department the most professional department in City Hall. I mean, because it's the first one people walk in and see. And I certainly never have a problem engaging any residents, and I can talk to anyone as well. I know the feeling that Judy knows, as well as many other city officials and city department heads and city staff know where residents are unhappy with a certain service. We've been there, but if you're professional about it, it's very easy to handle. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing statement time, and we will go first with Paul Przybelski.
Okay, in closing, I had already spoke about this, but the Common Council hired me, and I'm hoping that you as voters will hire me again on April 3rd. I've become very ingrained in this community. I'm starting a family here. I'm a millennial. And I think, frankly, we need a lot more millennials in this community. And, millennial sounds like a dirty word, but I really believe that I am much older than my chronological years make me out to be. I will reiterate that I have an excellent rapport with city staff. There's a lot of wonderful, talented people who work in City Hall, and I'm happy to work with them on a daily basis. I would really be distraught if I couldn't help continue some of the city initiatives that we have going right now and some of the momentum we have at City Hall, because it's really great and we're doing great things for Rapids. And so in closing, I'll just say to the voters that you got a choice on April 3rd, and choose experience. I'm the most experienced candidate for this office, and I will stand on that statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Velazquez, closing statement.
Well, again, I want to thank you for having us here. I have experience, too. A lot more experience than my opponent. I have life experience. I've been in a lot of stressful situations, and I've had to make a lot of, I guess with this gray hair, I don't have to talk to you to tell you that it means a lot when you're in a work environment. I've had it to, I'm sorry. I told you I haven't done this before, but I've built strong relationships within the city. I think that I would work well with the mayor, the other departments. They know me, and I've worked with them for a long time. I love to be out in that community, as I had stated before. I have the education that I need to do this job. I have the passion and the drive. I would tackle it like I do everything else that I tackle. It's not the first time that I've been up against something I haven't done before, but I've got two of the elements down pat, and that's administrative assistant or administrative job and the record management, public relations, and I need to learn the election part. But I hope you have confidence in me and that you give me your vote on April 3rd. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our two candidates who will be on the April 3rd general election ballot for Wisconsin Rapids City Clerk, Paul Przybelski and Judy Velazquez. That concludes tonight's forum. Thank you for those of you joining us at home and in our studio audience for the questions. Look forward to watching the rebroadcast of this forum this evening, as well as the forum tomorrow night, which will feature the Nakusa School Board. This forum will be rebroadcast several times, and check out the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media's YouTube channel about a day after the forum that will be available. Thank you to our League of Women Voters volunteers for coming here tonight. For the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media staff, Travis Plowman, Tom Laux, and volunteer David Ballerstein. Once again, don't forget to vote on April 3rd, and thank you for joining us.